No, I think Inspector Gooch, just I told you how we'd like this to go. I'd like to read a prepared statement about the incident last night. Coroner Wooten will speak a little bit about their process and what they did, and then we'll open up for questions, okay? All right, well, first of all, again, thank you all for coming and being patient while we investigated last night's incident on the Ravenel Bridge. Last night, officers responded to the bridge to what was described initially as injured persons involving more than one victim. The responding officers did locate two individuals sitting in a slumped over manner in the pedestrian lane near the between the diamonds. Both of these individuals, the officers did observe, have what appeared to be handguns sitting beside each of them. It was apparent to the initial responders that both had suffered a severe trauma and were taken to the MUSC for medical attention. Through our investigation, we were able to locate what we believe to be suicide notes and a video telling friends and loved ones goodbye from each of the two victims. We believe through our investigation that the two met while both were receiving counseling for mental health issues. They developed a friendship, and then for a reason we may never know, entered into what we believe was a suicide pact that they carried out last night on the bridge. An autopsy was completed on both victims, and I think at this point I'm going to ask Charleston County Coroner Ray Wooten to come speak about the results and any information she wants, and then I'll pick it back up.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you again. I echo the Chief's sentiments and appreciating your patience as we tried to investigate this very complicated and somewhat unusual tragedy. As has been indicated, first responders did respond, and the victims, decedents, were transported to MUSC for treatment where they both died. We are at this time going to release the names of the two individuals. The male, his name is William Charles Best, Jr. He went by the name C.J. Best. He was 30 years old. He resided in the Ladson, Somerville area, and the female victim or decedent, his name was Lindsay Bedunk, B-E-D-E-N-K, and she is 34 years old and resided in I'm not 34, I apologize, 24 years old, was from Colorado and had been residing in the area, I'm not certain for exactly how long. As indicated, both were transported, both did die, and an autopsy was performed on each of them today. And those findings, while we are still awaiting some final testing, etc., are consistent with each one dying as a result of a single intraoral gunshot wound. So that would indicate that both of them died by putting the weapon in their respective mouths and firing one time. The investigation is ongoing, as has been indicated before, and I would ask that you continue to be patient with us as we finalize some more details. But there is nothing at this point, based on the autopsy findings and the investigation by my office, that this is anything more, even though it's tragic, than the Chief has indicated, what appears to be a suicide pact where each individual made a decision to take their own lives, and that this was sort of done in tandem. So I don't anticipate there being any real changes in these findings, but again, we have some things we're continuing to take a look at. My investigation also supports what the Chief has already told you about their mental health issues and they're receiving counseling. We are in my office currently delving into that further, but that certainly the early indications are that is in fact consistent, his findings are consistent with ours.
And just want to kind of mention, not just to the press, but to the public, I know last night we only put out a little bit of information, and we felt it was important to at least put out something that we were working on an incident and that we knew we weren't looking for any other suspects. And of course, that causes speculation, conspiracies, and rumors going around. But we decided we had to wait until family was notified and they were spread out all over the country before we could come out and say, through our investigation, that it appeared to be a suicide. And I kind of want to segue a little bit into from the accidents on the bridge to what's been asked on a lot of people's mind. You know, any loss of life is a tragedy, but when it happens during a major event, a major internationally known event like the bridge run, concerns are raised. People become uncomfortable, especially when it happens on the course itself. What I want to do is ensure everyone who's involved in tomorrow's bridge run that, again, this was an isolated incident, as we can tell. Both persons did enter to the suicide pact, and then they committed what appears to be the act on the bridge. There are no other people involved. We're not looking for anyone else. We don't suspect anyone else. We also don't have any known threat or perceived threat right now to the bridge run events itself. As you all know, we work with local, state, federal agencies together, almost from one bridge run to the next, preparing and making sure that security is at its highest level here. That will still be the case, and those coming to the event tomorrow, they will be safe, and they should come here like they normally would for any other event when they were running the bridge run, even though this tragedy happened on the bridge. I would ask those participating, they can help us. If you see something that's suspicious, reach out to numerous officers that are going to be in the area. If they see it or they feel like it's suspicious, let us check it out, and we'll be glad to do that. So if you have any questions, I think Ray and I'll be glad to answer them for you the best we can.
Was there any consideration last night to at least say, though, or maybe why wasn't it done, to at least say we think this is a possible suicide? I know you couldn't put out the IDs yet, but
Sure.
The community was so, people are worried, like a shooting on the bridge.
I understand, and I'll speak to it first, and maybe Ray will as well. We also still have an obligation to the survivors and the family friends not to put that speculation out there. And until we can complete our police investigation, try and turn over every lead we have to Coroner, it hadn't been a homicide, and we were looking for more folks, but that's what we put out. At least we knew we weren't looking for anyone else. But until her folks did their job, there's no way I could come out and say for a fact that it was not. If you want to add anything to that.
I would certainly echo what the chief has said. While there were early, well, let me back up and say, as you can imagine, this was certainly something that's not a usual occurrence. And everyone was really startled and taken aback, and it took a while to sort of get our bearings about what is happening, which is normal. And we would make a huge mistake to rush to a conclusion before we do the investigation. That's how we really, really make even bigger problems. So I think it was a very good decision. I support what the chief said. They quickly got out the information that they weren't looking for suspects. And I think what that says is we don't think anyone's at risk, anyone else is at risk, but we've got to have time to do the investigation. I think that the public, certainly, their attention was drawn to the fact that it happened on the bridge with the bridge race coming. That's understandable. At the same time, we had to be very careful and dutiful in what we released and when, because we do have family members. But more than that, we just have to be very deliberate in making those kinds of decisions.
Anyone else?
Was your ability to release information last night delayed at all? I have a question of whether this fell in Charleston or Mount Pleasant. There was kind of a delay at some point.
No, I don't think a delay in releasing information. When the incident first happened, Charleston City did initially respond. Then when they were working it was determined that it looked like the jurisdictional line was going to be within our jurisdiction. So we came out then, and we'd already had officers on the scene. We were working together anyhow. So we simply did a handoff. We became the lead agency, and we were sharing the information that we both had gathered, and they continue to support us in this investigation. Early on, their public information officer had contacted ours, and they were already putting information out. I believe City and Inspector Hughes, I know you put some information out early on. So it was coming out, I think, as quick as we could get it out, and as we were trying to determine that we weren't looking at any other folks, is when we started putting that information out. We weren't looking for any of the suspects. So I don't think there was a delay at all when dealing with that.
Are you worried about any kind of copycat action reaction given how many people will be on the bridge tomorrow?
You know, I can't worry about it. I mean, I think we have prepared for any event that'll come up, and we will respond to it quickly, and we will take care of anything that happens on the bridge. I said, there are so many agencies that are involved in this thing, from one bridge run to the other. We try to anticipate and prepare for any event, and what the bridge runners and you guys will see all the things that are visible, but there's also so many things that are behind the scenes, making sure we're safe, and we'll react to it.
Are there any emergency call boxes anywhere on the pedestrian bridge?
Not a pedestrian lane, no.
Is that something you might consider putting in?
Again, I thought DOT, I said that's bridge belongs to DOT. We do have the call boxes down at the waterfront park, but I think in this day and age when everyone has cell phones, because that's how the call came in initially, was someone on the bridge with a cell phone.
I talked to one of the people who were on scene first off and told somebody to call. They didn't have their cell phones because they were jogging and
Gotcha.
running. So do you think that really could lead towards these call boxes being installed?
You know, I don't know for sure. It's something that certainly be discussed with Department of Transportation, and if it's something that's needed, it'll certainly be looked into and addressed.
And Coroner, did you happen to say the name of the ages of the victims?
I did. I said that, Mr. Best is 30 years of age, and, Ms. Badunk is 24 years of age.
Can you spell Lindsay the doc again, please?
I will, because actually the spelling is a little different than the pronunciation. The pronunciation is what I was given when I inquired of the family.
Okay.
It's B-E-D-E-N-K.
And Lindsay?
L-I-N-D-S-E-Y.
Can you spell the male's name also?
Charles, let me see, William, W-I-L-L-I-A-M, Charles, C-H-A-R-L-E-S, Best, B-E-S-T, and he is a junior. He was known by CJ.
Can you elaborate at all on the relationship between the two? I know you mentioned they met through mental health.
That's, at this time, that's all that I'm, able to elaborate on.
Do you know whether the family knew him at all, or?
We are not, at this time, it's nothing that would be appropriate for me to be elaborating about. One, because we're very early in the investigation, and two, certainly some of those kinds of things very sensitive.
And again, like Ritchie said, we are still working this investigation, uncovering everything we can about what led up to them being here. And so that's gonna be something that's gonna be ongoing for a while. So, no one has any other questions, I appreciate it.
You said there were both suicide notes and suicide videos left.
Well, there we have the suicide notes from both, and then there was a video from one. That's the beginning. That's right now all I can put out. It's still under investigation, but that helped lead us to the fact that we believed it was a suicide pact and nothing else.
Were they actual hard copy notes or were they?
Again, I'm gonna hold off on that while my investigators are doing their job. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much.
Thanks. And if anyone needed one of my cards for any reason,
And again, I want to thank you guys for last night for getting that information out. It was extremely helpful for us to let the public know that somebody wasn't, we weren't looking for anybody else. If you would, don't forget to take off your ID tags and leave them at the front desk for me. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you. Yes, sir.